Intel's promised microcode update to address stability issues on 13th and 14th gen processors is here. If you've been out of the loop and don't know what's going on, well, there's a bunch of videos on my channel and other channels talking about 13th and 14th gen Intel stability issues. Go ahead and take a look at those. But anyway, a lot of the history of this will get addressed in this post as we kind of go through it. But the point is, Intel, well, let's just read their post. Intel is currently distributing to its OEM ODM partners a new microcode patch 0x129 for its Intel Core 13th, 14th gen desktop processors, which will address incorrect voltage requests to the processor that are causing elevated operating voltage. For all Intel Core 13th, 14th gen desktop processor users, this patch is being distributed via a BIOS update and will not be available through operating system updates. Now, that's actually something I want to stop and talk about for just a second here, because if this was rolled out through Windows updates, then the less knowledgeable PC users, or at least those who don't follow channels like mine or Gamers Nexus or whatever that have been talking about this, in other words, I would say the majority of people who have a 13th or 14th gen processor probably have no idea this whole stability thing has even been a thing. They just don't pay attention to this type of news. And if this had been rolled out through an operating system update that just got applied through a normal Windows update, it could have then helped those people who just didn't know they needed to go out and do anything. The typical just random person with a PC doesn't update their BIOS. That's just not a thing that they do. So anyway, this is being distributed via BIOS update and will not be available through operating system updates, so that is what it is. Intel is working with its partners to ensure timely validation and rollout of the BIOS update for systems currently in service. As of today, when I'm filming this, I've seen MSI and Asus, I think, have released for at least some of their motherboards this chip, and yes, we have seen some early test results, which we'll talk about in this video. Okay, so what is this all going on about? Well, instability analysis update, here's Intel's latest directly from Intel, make of that what you will, talking about the microcode background and performance implications. Because again, okay, we're getting a microcode update, why are we doing this, and will this cause performance problems? So here's Intel's take, and then we'll look at if we have any third-party results. In addition to extended warranty coverage, so Intel has extended warranties on many of their CPUs, Intel has released 3 mitigations related to these instability issues. Commonly experienced as consistent application crashes and repeated hangs to help stabilize customer systems with Intel Core 13th and 14th gen desktop processors. So in other words, they've already done a few things. Number one, they made Intel default settings to avoid elevated power delivery to the processors on May of 2024. Then they issued a microcode update 0x125 to fix the ETVB issue on i9 processors specifically. That happened in June. And now in August, we're getting this microcode update 0x129 to address the elevated voltages. Also, again, we had the extended warranty coverage, and I do want to take a little bit of a side note on that, along with a little bit of a side note on Intel default settings. Because there's a lot going on here. If you look at the Intel default settings, this is their guidance. So really, there's still actually different performance profiles. There's baseline performance and extreme for some of the processors. Some of them just have baseline and performance. So there's still some variability allowed here. And they do talk about some settings that they recommend here. So, well, Intel default settings sounds like it's just one thing that it really encompasses a variety of settings. So that's a little less clear than we would maybe like. But anyway, there's that. And now talking about the extended warranty coverage, here's the latest I've found on this, because Intel had kind of waffled a little bit on exactly which CPUs were getting this extended warranty report and how you purchase them. So here's the latest on their warranty extensions. So following Intel's earlier announcement regarding a 2-year warranty extension from date of purchase, up to a maximum of 5 years on Intel Core 13th, 14th desktop processors, please see below for additional details on the program. So specifically, which ones got the warranty extension? So the warranty extension is specifically That's actually not showing up that well. It shows up better on this background. Okay. It's basically for the 13900KS, K, KF, F, 13900, 13700K, 13700KF, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's the range of products down from the i9s down to the i5s, but stopping at the 13600KF and hitting everything in between. And same thing for the 14th gen, which again is a refreshed version for the most part of the 13th gen. Anyway, so these are the processors that are getting the 2-year warranty extension from date of purchase. Notice they say it applies to new and previously purchased processors if they are one of the Intel 13th, 14th gen SKUs listed above, and it applies to all customers globally. They're also saying that standard warranty process and terms apply, which they then list here. Also, there was some confusion or, Intel being unclear about the difference between boxed processors, tray processors. Oh, what if you got it from a system integrator? So they're saying for users who are or have previously experienced instability symptoms on their Intel Core 13th, 14th gen desktop processors and need to initiate the exchange process. So in other words, if you're having stability issues on one of these CPUs, if you have a boxed processor, you contact Intel customer support directly. If you bought a tray processor, you contact your place of purchase. And if you got it from a system integrator or OEM, you contact your system manufacturer for further assistance. Anyway, they're also saying that if you were previously denied an RMA, that you should reach out again, because theoretically, they've given further guidance to maybe be more receptive to these RMAs. Although, again, if you look at posts online, it's still been somewhat hit or miss for a lot of users as far as actually getting them. Anyway, that's the latest I have on their warranty update and all that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back into this microcode update. So, Intel is claiming their current analysis finds there is a significant increase to the minimum operating voltage, called Vmin, across multiple cores on affected processors due to elevated voltages. Elevated voltage events can accumulate over time and contribute to the increase in Vmin for the processor. So they're saying that this is the issue that they had identified as one of the causes of these stability issues. They're saying that what the latest microcode update 0x129 does is it limits the voltage requests above 1.55 volts as a preventative mitigation for processors not experiencing instability symptoms. In other words, so if your processor doesn't yet have, is not experiencing instability symptoms, then this update of not allowing it to go above 1.55 volts should stop it from degrading over time, which is saying has been the issue, the accumulation of this effect over time. Whereas they're not saying that this will fix processors that already have stability issues. And so that's a very important detail, right? This does not fix the issue for people who already had degradation. This is preventative for people who have not yet had degradation. They say this latest microcode update will primarily improve operating conditions for KKF and KS processors, and Intel is also confirming, based on extensive validation, all future products will not be affected by this issue. So they're saying, again, claiming extensive validation, that all future products will not be affected by this issue. That's their claim. We'll have to see if that's the case, but at least they're definitely probably not wanting their next generation of processors to be affected by the same problem. Anyway, Intel is continuing to investigate mitigations for scenarios that can result in Vmin shift on potentially impacted processors. Intel will provide updates by end of August. So in other words here, what they're saying about this microcode update is this is helping the people who have not experienced instability symptoms, but they're saying they're continuing to investigate mitigations for people who are potentially impacted. So there could still be more to come here for people who have already started having problems. Now, is there going to be a performance impact from this microcode update? That's one of the big questions. Let's look at Intel's claims, and then we'll look at what we're seeing from independent testing. So, Intel's internal testing says using Intel default settings. Now, again, Intel default settings aren't quite as clear exactly what that means, depending on which motherboard you're on and whatnot. Anyway, but using Intel default settings, indicates performance impact is within run-to-run variation in a lot of stuff. However, they do say that a few subtests show moderate impacts. Now, your interpretation of the word moderate, right, so that's where we need to see some independent testing. They're seeing some moderate impacts to performance in WebEx PRT, online homework, Puget Bench GPU effect score, and they're saying in gaming workloads tested, performance has also been within run-to-run variation. They're claiming that in Cyberpunk and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Total War Warhammer 3, Mirrors of Madness, and with one exception showing slightly more impact, which they're saying is Hitman 3 Dartmoor. However, system performance is dependent on configuration and several other factors. Okay, now my question a bit on this performance stuff, and we'll see this a bit later as we look at some independent testing, is, okay, so there's CPUs out there that have already had some degradation, and so they might have been requiring this high voltage to try to maintain performance. So if they get this microcode update and then have this limit, I'm wondering if they will then see a larger performance impact than what Intel is measuring here against what is theoretically a CPU that has not yet experienced stability, issues and degradation. Okay, so I think that's going to be an important thing to watch out for. Now, they're saying for unlocked Intel Core 13th and 14th Gen desktop processors, the latest microcode update will not prevent users from overclocking if they so choose. Users can disable the ETVB setting in their BIOS if they wish to push above the 1.55 volt threshold. As always, Intel recommends users proceed with caution when overclocking their desktop processors, as overclocking may void their warranty and or affect system health. So careful here on all these warranty claims, right? Because they are saying that overclocking could void the warranty. Anyway, as a general best practice, Intel recommends customers with Intel Core 13th and 14th Gen desktop processors utilize the Intel default settings, which again, not quite as simple as that sounds when you read it. Anyway, in light of recently announced extended warranty program, Intel is reaffirming its confidence in its products and is committed to making sure all customers who have or are currently experiencing instability symptoms on their 13th and 14th Gen desktop processors are supported in the exchange process. Users experiencing consistent instability symptoms should reach out to their system manufacturer, OEM system integrator, purchase Intel customer support box processor, or place of purchase tray processor for further assistance. Okay, so that's Intel's full claim. I gave some of my thoughts on it. But now what I want to look at is, okay, what about independent testing of this new microcode? Now, again, I think it's going to be really important to keep a couple of things in mind. This microcode's goal here isn't really performance related, right? The goal here is limiting the 1.55 volts as the maximum for the Vmin in order to prevent future degradation of processors that have not already degraded, right? So that's their overall goal. Now, independent testing to show that processors don't degrade using this setting, I imagine that being extremely difficult, right? Because, or at least extremely time consuming, meaning I don't see how anybody could download this microcode update and take a brand new CPU that has had no degradation and then determine that this microcode update has therefore stopped it from degrading. It seems like you would need a large sample of, so far unused silicon to then run at, heavy workloads that used to trigger the problem for a long time to validate whether or not this has stopped degradation from occurring. Because I'm just trying to think, again, how do you scientifically measure whether this microcode update has been effective at stopping degradation over time, right? Now, what you can measure is if it does stop the voltage from going above 1.55 volts, so you can measure that. And you can also measure performance claims. So Intel has claimed that many tests, don't show anything beyond run-to-run variation. However, they do acknowledge some moderate impacts to certain workloads and certain games, although many of them not. Now, again, they're not giving specific numbers for that. So as soon as these microcode updates went into the wild, we started seeing a bunch of user posts about this. So why don't we go ahead and dig into some of those and then look at some further independent testing and all of that. And if you're wondering, like, Daniel, where's your independent testing? I don't have these CPUs, so but I can bring you the news and research what people are seeing and give my thoughts on that. So let's just roll with that. So here we're seeing a whole bunch of just like posts on Reddit, which, you know, take that for what you will. We're seeing somebody here claiming major performance hit on the new BIOS with a Pro Z90A Wi-Fi DDR4 with a 13600K. He's using XTU, so Extreme Tuning Utility, I think that is Intel's kind of built-in thing, showing pre-update results compared with after-update results. And this is both for running it at, it looks like 5390 megahertz setting, as well as at a 5090 megahertz setting versus 5070 here. So anyway, they're showing pretty a big reduction here. 83% of the previous score with the 5390 OC and 90% of the previous with the default profile. And if we go ahead and take a look at, he did upload some results to kind of validate those claims. So, make of that what you will. There's at least some evidence provided here. It is just a random Reddit post, though. But there were a bunch of them as soon as these BIOS updates popped. Like we can see another one here saying dropped 2503129 onto my 13900K Z790F gaming Wi-Fi. BIOS was then reset to defaults with only XMP1 set. And saying that the Intel performance profile, OCCT, shows the CPU refusing to go above 4.8 gigahertz, and in fact that frequency fluctuates throughout, falling as low as 3.5 gigahertz and temps never exceeding low 70s. And on the Intel Extreme, it's showing that the CPU refuses to go above 5 gigahertz, and again the frequency fluctuates, but not to the same extent as performance, temps never exceed low 80s. So one thing that I want to say here is, again, remember that Intel's claims, this is why I brought this up earlier, Intel's claims of not having much performance impact, again, I think are going to be based on silicon that has not yet degraded, right? You see what I'm saying? So I think that it's perhaps the case that what we're seeing here, and again, I can't completely validate this, but this is me trying to interpret what we're seeing here. Could it be the case that silicon that has already degraded needed values to go above 1.55 in order to keep the performance that they were getting, and that what we're seeing here from these types of posts that are showing much more than what Intel claimed in performance degradation could be due to that the fact that maybe their silicon has already degraded. Now, it's also possible that individual Reddit posts are just not accurate. People could just make crap up. People could just not be thoroughly controlling all of the variables of the settings and testing. There are more of these. We see and get various performance claims. This one's saying, I did the update this morning on my Godlike. The OX129 microcode had been out right away for that motherboard. With the same settings as before, my performance dropped from 40K Cinebench R23 to 37K. Seems those high voltage spikes actually did give more performance at the cost of degradation, and accusing Intel of lying if they're saying performance was not affected. Finding another one here saying significantly worse performance for me, 14900K on MPG's Z790, runs hotter, less performance, and more voltage. The weird thing is if I change LLC mode to anything other than default, mode 16, it will seriously limit performance. It was running better with my previous optimized settings. Seeing another post here saying updated my Z790 Apex 14900KS. Seems they are still defaulting 320 watt 400 amp limits. However, when I remove all limits and let it thermal throttle on R23, my VLatch max only hits 1.554 volts, which again, that is staying below that 1.55 kind of number that this patch was trying to do, which is much higher than 6.2 gigahertz voltage, and I score 41,000, which is normal depending on AIO temp, etc. Before my VLatch max was hitting way over 1.6 volts, so they've done something, so he's confirming bringing down the voltages. Now this is a bunch of random Reddit posts. However, as of the time I'm recording this video, we did get Jay's 2 cents into the mix. Now, I don't want to, give you all of his graphs and testing and all that. I will link his video in the video description so you can go ahead and, get all of his full thoughts and all of his full tests. One thing I would say is that Jay's 2 cents is probably using a CPU that, probably I think might be more in line with what we would confirm Intel was trying to do with this, which was probably test this for CPUs that have not had any degradation. Again, on these random Reddit posts, are we getting people who already have degradation on their CPUs seeing larger performance hits, right? That's kind of a question mark. Now, one thing I want to look at is, okay, so again, what can we test this on? Is this microcode doing what it set out to do, which is to restrict the Vmin to 1.55? And he does have a graph confirming that that's the case, where the blue line is on the new microcode and the green line is before that microcode. And you can see, especially right here, that after running this test a number of times, the green line does definitely go above 1.55, and the blue line, the new microcode, is keeping the setting, to the 1.55 and below like it's supposed to, right? So it does look like Jay is confirming that the microcode is doing what it set out to do, right, in terms of limiting that number. Now, again, what is it doing in terms of performance? Well, he does confirm that many tests, and he has a lot of them, so again, check out the full video. In many tests, there is basically just run-to-run variance, this one being Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and interestingly, that's one of the ones that Intel claimed was just run-to-run variation. So that is some validation of what Intel is saying here. We're also getting Cyberpunk, though, showing like a 3% performance degradation, which isn't a lot. Intel was claiming Cyberpunk is within run-to-run variation, whether you consider 3% run-to-run variation. I don't know exactly what the normal variation is on that test, so it's not huge, but there's some small variation there. However, Jay did find that in, let's see, it was TimeSpy Extreme, there was actually a 6% reduction of performance. So TimeSpy Extreme's CPU test score, that 6% is a more noticeable reduction. I wouldn't consider that run-to-run variance, and this tends to be a fairly stable result that wouldn't normally shift 6% in run-to-run variance. So it certainly looks like there are tests with larger performance gaps. And again, Intel was acknowledging that some workloads had a moderate impact. Perhaps 6% or so is what they're calling a moderate impact. We're also seeing that other workloads just indicate basically nothing. Now again, Jay has a lot of good information in this video. There's a lot of tests to look at. I just highlighted a few of them to get some, probably more controlled testing out there than just these random Reddit posts, right? Not that people's, the thing is, for something like this, you need a lot of silicon tested, and YouTube channels day one can only test so much, right? So getting a feel for what random posters are saying still, I think, is useful information, especially in the early days of what we're getting. I mean, how did we start hearing about all these stability issues, right? We started seeing a bunch of people reporting that they were having stability issues. And then it kind of grew from there, right? So anyway, let me kind of wrap up my thoughts on this microcode. So again, what's going on here with this microcode, and what can we even say about it? So it would have been nice if we never had this issue to deal with at all. It's good that Intel is, as promised, delivering a microcode update. It looks like Redditors, as well as Jay's 2 cents, have confirmed that it does seem to do what it's supposed to do, which is limit voltage requests above 1.55 volts for the Vmin. Now, that's something that can be confirmed. On performance claims, Jay's numbers seem to be lining up with roughly what you would maybe interpret Intel's claims to mean, which isn't that there's no performance difference, it's that in some workloads there is a moderate impact. But in other workloads, there's no real impact. So that seems to be confirmed by Jay. But then we are seeing Redditors posting much more significant reductions in performance. Now again, what are all of their testing conditions? Can those be validated? All of that? I don't know. That's harder to verify. But again, I'm curious if it's related to people who already have degradation on their silicon, and that maybe this is having a larger performance impact for them, and maybe Intel was not really addressing that situation, although I think they're implying that later in August we will get the results of their continuing investigation for mitigations for scenarios that can result in Vmin shift on potentially impacted CPUs. Anyway, then, like I said, the last thing that this is designed to do, actually the main thing it's designed to do, the way it's doing it is by limiting the voltage. But what is the goal of limiting the voltage? That's to stop. It's preventative, right? It's a preventative mitigation for processors that had not already degraded. Now, can we validate that this does that? And that's where I'm saying this is going to be way harder to actually test because of what would be involved in that testing, right? You would need a lot of silicon with this microcode update running a long time to see if it ever degrades, right? So with that being said, I think that's going to be the hardest part of all of this to validate, is whether this actually stops future CPUs from seeing this issue. And again, what are we doing for the people who already have the problem? Hopefully Intel is making really good on those warranty extensions and warranty claims. And again, we've seen some mixed results so far in anecdotal evidence, but that's all we really have to go off of at this point. Hopefully you guys found this video useful and or interesting. Huge thank you to viewers, subscribers, channel members who click the join button to directly support what I do here financially. It's absolutely huge, so massive thank you to them. And again, totally understand that doesn't fit everybody's budget. But in return, you do get little badges on your comments and early access to some videos, things like that. So anyway, like I said, hopefully you guys found this video useful and or interesting. I will include sources in my video description if you want to follow up more on this. And if you do have one of these processors, I would say pay attention to if as soon as you get this microcode update available for your BIOS, and update to it to try to avoid any more degradation than may have already occurred. And I'd be interested to see in the comment section if you've applied this BIOS update. What are you noticing for your performance, and like what were your previous settings and these settings and all of that. So let me know what you're seeing, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.